so I can remember how everything is, I am going to disconnect my new hoses and paint this piping. I'm preparing to put the intake back together on the Daihatsu Midget II. I did a thorough cleaning of the carburetor and checked the function, the throttle pump. I don't even know what to call it, but the pump that squirts in some additional fuel just as you open the carburetor. That's good. I have cleaned, and checked all the plumbing and everything and replaced all of the vacuum lines. I tested this connector. Goes to two different things, and I only think I know what one of them is. It goes to this, which I believe is a solenoid that closes the fuel flow off when the ignition is turned off, and it also goes here, and I am not sure what that is, but seems to be in good shape. I did not disassemble the carburetor, and the reason being it doesn't leak. It was running great before, so I just did a whole bunch of cleaning. I cleaned out there you go, you can see some fuel come out from the accelerator pump, I think is what you'd call it. And the float bowl, of course, I put some carb cleaner. This is your float drain, so if you take that off, you can see in there and see the plastic float itself and so forth. And I did a lot of cleaning without disassembling it, because again, it works and I don't want to have to replace gaskets, so lots of cleaning. Wanted to talk a little bit about this plate. I believe this is a part of the carburetor heating plumbing. It seals against the intake plenum, and as you can see, there are a couple of ports here, and let's see here. I think what this does is that you have coolant come into the intake plenum right where it meets the carb to prevent icing. And this has been machined. I used a die grinder to match up the ports so that the carburetor doesn't have any kind of overlap. The plenum doesn't have any overlap that blocks part of the carburetor flow. And I have a rubber O-ring that goes here that seals this plate against the carburetor. EGR valve is over here. I don't disable emissions controls on any of my vehicles. I'm a grown-up. I live on this planet, so I'm responsible in that regard, and I hope that you are too. My EGR valve, I've done some cleaning. There's a bunch of carbon buildup, and the base of it is iron, as it needs to be to handle the heat. I taped over the diaphragm and put some very high temp VHT paint on that iron, and you can kind of see in there a little bit. Yeah, you can see the shaft that articulates the valve, but I don't disable emissions equipment. What would I gain? 2 horsepower? That's not going to do much. And again, I'm an adult. I don't hate clean air. I have the intake plenum and carburetor bolted on. I've got about 30 more minutes until I can torque down this mechanical fuel pump. There's RTV that's part of that gasket set. And I'm going to switch over now and install. I think I'm going to bolt the torque converter up and then slide the transmission on. It seems like that's going to be easier to line up, and I'll make another video if it turns out this was not a good idea, but that's the plan. Okay, wrong order of operations, because you can't put this dust shield on if the torque converter is on first. So I'm taking it back off. Lesson learned. And you can learn from my mistakes. Did a little cleaning on the starter for the Daihatsu Midget. Most of the housing is aluminum, the end cap as well as the nose. But this middle part where the windings are, of course, that is ferrous metal, and the paint had come off and it had started to rust. So I just hit the whole thing, the whole exterior with a wire, fine wire brush, and then put clear Rust-Oleum, put a couple of coats of that on there to keep the ferrous parts from rusting. And of course the aluminum, it does corrode over time, though much slower than ferrous metal, so I gave them a good coat, cleaned them up too, got the oxidation off. But you've got a plastic fork mechanism that connects to your solenoid, which engages the drive wheel to hit the starter ring, or the whatever that ring is called. And of course this is the motor that drives it. There's your rotor and your stator. It's got bearings, needle bearings in the very end. Those look pretty good, so we can get you a better view. But yeah, starter's fine, but like I said, it had some rust, so not anymore. I should have pointed out your brushes, the 4 brushes down there, and they make contact with the winding here. They're not new, but they don't look too bad. The plastic fork that pushes the drive teeth up and down on the shaft fits in right here, and this solenoid will, I've got to do it with both hands, but it fits in together like this, but you've got to put the fork on the solenoid and then slide the solenoid in, and that solenoid will drive these forks to move the starter motor into engagement and out of it.